Akko here, welcome to my tutorial on Mechanism 6 processing. This is actually 5 processing lines behind me. We're going to start at the left hand side there. We're going to work our way right across to the quintuple processing over there. I've got my little helper with me. I've got Jeeves the robot. Say hello, Jeeves. Beep boop. Yes, beep boop indeed. Follow me, dude. So, I like this guy. This is a Robert. This is also from Mechanism. So I'm pretty much using... all I'm using here is Mechanism, a bit of thermal expansion and a little bit of extra utilities across there, but we'll get to that in a bit. So, ore processing. Right, we're going to start with the basic. So, basic smelting, of course, if you use a smelter. Now, you should have some ore for me, I believe. You have, thank you very much. So, basic smelting, we put one ore in, we get one ingot out, yeah? Easy enough. So, that's basic smelting, and for that we use the energized smelter. The next level is ore doubling. Now in Mechanism, for that we use an enrichment chamber for our first machine, and then from the enrichment chamber the dust goes into the energized smelter. We get 2 iron ingots, so we've doubled our ores. So that's going to be a first step. Playing modded Minecraft from vanilla is that you double your ores, so there we go. Enrichment chamber, energized smelting. Now we get to the ore tripling. This was available in Mechanism 5. The quadrupling and quintupling is new to Mechanism 6. So for this we bring an extra couple of machines in here. First of all, we bring this guy in, purification chamber. Now the purification chamber has 2 requirements. It doesn't only require power. So all these have got power running down the back. It's got a power line running all the way down there with a creative energy cell from thermal expansion. So I've got infinite power just for this little tutorial. So this guy needs power. He also needs something in here. Now we could do 2 things for this. One of them is we could put flint into there, and we could feed flint into this bottom slot here, this purple slot, and the flint would be used up in there. The other way is doing it like this. This is using a machine called an electrolytic separator, which we'll get to a lot. We use quite a few of these in this processing line. What this can do, this can separate water into hydrogen and oxygen. At the minute we're dumping the hydrogen and we are using the oxygen to put into there. So because that machine's next to this, it's just feeding the oxygen straight in there. And what that does is that if we go into there, you'll see that turns into, it's all going far too quick, iron clumps. I've upgraded the machines. You see, it uses some of the oxygen. We feed from a purification chamber into a crusher, which then crushes the clumps that we've made. They then go into the enrichment chamber as the same. So the end bit's the same as over there, enrichment chamber and energized smelter, and we end up with 3. So we're on to ore tripling. So we've got 2 more machines here. We've got the purification chamber and the crusher. So that creates clumps, that crushes the clumps, that enriches them, and then that smelts them into ingots. Wonderful. So for this machine, in this case we need a water source, so I've just got a creative water tank for this to show you how it goes, but you need some kind of, you need some way of getting water into there. So that's all ore tripling. Very straightforward, very simple. You can use, like I say, you can use flint or oxygen for that piece there. So if you did want to, for example, you can put cobble into there and it'll crush it into flint. No, sorry, you can put cobble into there, crush it into gravel, then back into there again, it'll crush it into flint, I believe. I don't want to dwell on that too much, but I believe, certainly, okay, gravel becomes sand. Ignore me. You can, there's ways of getting flint, I'm sure you know. Right, so now onto the Mechanism 6 stuff. This is where it gets a bit more complicated. Now this is our ore quadrupling. It finishes here at the Resonant Strong box. We start over here. First thing we need for this is we get a new machine. So in fact, let's start at the back end here. The back end's all the same. So we've got our smelter, enrichment chamber, crusher, and our purification chamber. Our purification chamber still needs oxygen. So this onwards is exactly the same as this. So this electrolytic separator is doing exactly the same as this, and that's all the same there. But instead of putting ores into our purification chamber, what we're going to do is we're going to put shards into there. So this bit is about making shards, and what this does is this turns 1 iron ore into 4 shards. So instead of tripling, we are getting 4 shards into it, and there's no more multiplication, once it goes into here, it just processes the 4 shards. So let me actually, for a second, I'm going to turn the auto eject off on there, and I'm going to put in one of our ores in there, and you'll see it's come out as shards across the top, and the shards come into here. So you see, one ore gave us 4 shards, 4 shards give us 4 clumps, and then we'll follow the path as before. Clumps become dirty iron, become clean iron, just iron dust, becomes 4. So there we go, we've got 4 ingots from 1 ore there. So this is a new bit then that you need to deal with. We've got this new machine, chemical injection chamber. This is used in both the 4 times and the 5 times processing. It requires a secondary resource like this one does that requires oxygen. This one requires hydrogen chloride. Now hydrogen chloride comes from this little setup here. So there's one new machine here and one we've seen before. We've got the electrolytic separator here again. This time, instead of putting water into it, we're putting brine into it. I'll get into brine in just a minute. That's what that's about across there. That's their salination plants. We'll get to them in a minute. So we've got brine going into this instead of water. What happens with the brine is it gets separated into hydrogen and chlorine. Then what we need to do is we need to pump that out of this separator. So we've got pressurized tubes that are taking, so that's taking the hydrogen out. The hydrogen is going into this chemical infuser, and the chlorine is going straight into the side of this chemical infuser. So what's happening is we're separating it and then we're putting it back together by infusing it back together into this new machine, the chemical infuser. So hydrogen and chlorine back into this creates this hydrogen chloride. So the brine gets separated into a gas, gets infused as a gas, and becomes hydrogen chloride. More pressurized tubes out the front of there, puts the hydrogen chloride into our chemical injection chamber. Wonderful. So this is a little sealed unit. This is a little bit slow. You may want multiple of these once you've got your system running fast. Now these are just basic. These are all just basic machines. I've not done any factories. These can be upgraded 3 more times to factories that have I think it's 9 input slots. These are all fully upgraded. I've got 8 speed upgrades, 8 energy upgrades. So this processes materials very fast. This will not keep up. One of these will not keep up. In my Resonant Rise survival, I will be having, I think I'm going to have 8 of these. I'm going to see how 8 goes. Same for the crystallization part in the quintupling, which I'll get to that, but I'm going to have multiple of these and multiple of them because they just don't keep up. These machines can be upgraded. Unfortunately, these cannot, so these are limited to the processing speed. Right, so now we need to cover how we get brine. What are you doing down there, Jeeves? Come up here, you damn fool. Everyone who wears a tuxedo needs a robot butler. That's just a fact. Right, brine. How do we get brine? We need this thing. It's called a salination plant. Now, I've made 2 here. I've made the smallest one possible, I've made the biggest one possible. This creates brine. It takes in water, it creates brine. What you've got is, there's 3 blocks make up this thing itself. There's a salination block, there's the salination valves, which you need 1 input and 1 output, and there's a salination controller, which is what gives it the brains of the multi-block structure. You also need to power it, and to power it you need advanced solar generators. So it needs 4 advanced solar generators, 1 in each corner, and what that'll do is the solar generators will heat up the water that's inside it. If we're looking there, you should see water in there. We actually cannot. Is that why we're not seeing water in there? Must need a bigger one to see water, I'm sure. You can see, look, you can see water in a bigger one. You see water through there? Anyway, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually get us a drum. I only wanted 1 of them. So I'm going to break this create tank, and you'll see that now we are producing brine. The brine's going to go into this drum, and you'll see that this is going to go down, and you'll see actually what speed we're producing brine at here. So there's a couple of things here that this tells us. When you put this together, by the way, let me just break it actually. And now I need a salination block. So when you put it together, the screen's dark. What will happen is, if it's put together correctly, when you click this button, it will form the multi-block structure. It'll give you a bit of information. Now the height is 3. 1, 2, 3. The height maximum can be 18. So top and bottom and 16 middle bits is the maximum. The bottom's just salination blocks, 16 in a square. The middle blocks are a ring, so they're hollow in the middle. So it's a ring around the outside, and you can have valves in any of the middle blocks. And then the top blocks is just 2 on each side. One of them has to be the controller, and you need to have the solar panels on that same level as well. So that makes you top. So that's what the height is. This multiplier here, this is due to what biome we're in. Now this is a desert biome. Because the desert biomes are hotter, then we get this multiplier here. In a normal biome, that's 0. In a cold biome, I'm going to guess that's going to be negative. So again, in survival, if you want to maximize this, you're going to want to be in a desert biome for this bit. And then the maximum is the maximum heat it can generate. This small structure can only generate 200 degrees, and that 200 degrees is what limits the amount of bran that can be produced. So we're seeing here we are 43, 53, 60, 70, 80. It's going alright. That's only millibuckets though, so it's not going particularly quick. We've got 19 buckets in there at the minute. There's 20 buckets worth. And 20.1 coming up now, so it's not massively quick. This will run out very quickly when we're processing stuff. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come out of creative. I'm going to break that drum. Give me a pick. In fact, let's stick to the mechanism feel and grab a atomic disassembler. Boop. Right, so I've got some bran into there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this out. I cannot spell. Break that. There we go. And this is causing me hassle. That's what auto output with it. Come here, you. I want one of you. Bottom of that. And I want one of you pipes onto there. Now that should work. That should put bran into there. Cool. So what we're going to see here is I'm actually going to put this stack of 60. In fact, I'll go with a full stack. A full stack of iron ore. Let's get rid of that. So what we should see in here when we finish is 4 stacks of iron ore. So I'll let that work a little bit, and you'll see this is going to start going down. And this is going to start using that up. And we'll come back to that in a bit, and we'll see how long that lasted. Now this was already all primed and full, but that ain't going to cut it, to be honest. I've got quite a slow system going, and it's just not cutting it. Now, this is a max size one. This produces a lot quicker. One of the things you need to notice here as well is these transfer nodes, they've got upgrades in them. They've got 16 speed and 16 mining upgrades. You need these upgrades, otherwise this will never keep up. This one is producing a lot quicker. These are quite nice, aren't they? From Railcraft, little metal platforms that you can use for industrial buildings. So this, if you look at the difference here, the height's 18, the maximum temperature is 1700, so it produces a lot quicker. So if we do our same thing down here with a drum, you'll see that it's going to clear out its internal buffer. That would actually clear out quicker if I upgraded the transfer node there as well, but that's not upgraded, that's just a normal one. The transfer nodes, just to be clear, are from extra utilities. They seem to be the best things for getting liquids in and out of this. So there we go, on its way down. Right then. You went see. There we go. So you see that, actually you can see from there. See the way it's jumping up and down? That's producing a lot quicker than this guy is down here. This guy's buffer's going to be full again, isn't it? This guy's not actually working. Not getting enough water. Oh, because he's not upgraded. There we go. So I see that because without the upgrades, in fact, I remember now, I left them out on there on purpose. Without the upgrades, you see that will not keep up. So the water's coming in and getting used up straight away. With these upgrades that are in here. So you need 16 of each. Now you will see that the water can keep up. No worries. Sweet. Let me just get rid of them. I should just use that, shouldn't I? Boop boop. Does that not work? Oh, I think it works. What the hell? Block of dark iron? Go away. I don't like what I did there. I got scared. So, salination blocks, there we go. So that's what you need to get that going. This drum's empty, look. This is still full, but yeah, it's still full. It's still using it up, but the drum's gone. The 20 buckets worth have gone in there. How far are we through this? We're all the way through that. So that's lasted all right. Once you get like a digital mana or a quarry or something going on, that will drain down very quick. Right. So now that's the that's the quadrupling. Now onto the final one. This is the quintupling. Now this is the daddy. Or quintupling. Now again, this is the same down here. So starting at the resonant strongbox, I want another stack of iron for this, aren't I? Starting at the resonant strongbox, these are all the same up to there. This is the same setup again with the brine. So again, we're the same there. So this tier 4, this quadrupling setup is exactly the same here. The difference this time is, if you remember, the first time we put our ore into there. The second time we put our ore into there and put shards into there. Now we're going to put our ores into these machines down here, and that's not going to get processed because there isn't going to be enough sulfuric acid in there. Now look, it's just run out. This machine here, which turns it into a crystal, and the crystal is not auto ejected. There we go. You guy, eject. Well, that should have ejected. We get these crystals, and then and you see there that I've run one through this before I started recording to make sure it worked. 1 ore becomes 5 crystals. So we're actually doing our multiplication here. So we no longer multiply here, the same as in the previous stage. We no longer multiplied there. So the ore crystals go into there. So 1 ore becomes 5, and then this just gets processed the same as before. Just goes through these, becomes shards again. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio, crystals to shards, and then 1-to-1 ratio all the way through. So we end up with 5 ingots. Sweet. So you can pretty much ignore all that bit because we've covered it in there. This new bit then, there's 3 machines here. Let me talk through the first one. The first one requires sulfuric acid, which we're going to get onto making. That's what this bit's about. This section here is about making sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid and iron. Put all them in there ready when we get this running in a minute. Sulfuric acid and iron. We'll turn this into a iron ore slurry. We then need to wash the iron ore slurry with this machine called a chemical washer. So that needs water. So I've got another creative tank putting water in there for me. So I'll get water and the iron ore slurry, and that'll become clean iron ore slurry in there. That goes to this fair machine which crystallizes. So that takes the clean iron ore slurry, crystallizes it into the shards, and then ejects the shards into there and carries on as before. It's raining. Let's turn the rain off. Make it nice and bright again. That's better. So let's see how we make sulfuric acid then. We start down here. We start again with an electrolytic separator, and we start again by putting water into it. So we've got water going into here. We're dumping the hydrogen again. You can use this hydrogen, by the way. We could have a hydrogen generator there powering some of this. So when you're starting up, you certainly want to use a hydrogen generator because you're producing it anyway. You might as well use it. Hydrogen generator, I believe, puts out 240 RF a tick, so it's like 3 dynamos. So as it's free, you might as well use it. The problem is though, if you're using hydrogen and oxygen, you can jam up. If you use hydrogen and oxygen, you can jam up. If you're using hydrogen and oxygen, you can jam up. The problem is though, if you're using hydrogen and oxygen, you can jam up. The problem is though, if you're using hydrogen and oxygen, you can jam up. this oxygen's full and you want hydrogen for the generator, then you have to start dumping some oxygen to give it enough room so it can make. If that makes sense, right? Anyway, I don't want to confuse you too much with that. So that is putting oxygen into this chemical infuser. So the chemical infuser is a machine that we used across here, that thing. So we use another one of them, but this time we're putting oxygen into it. Now this side, this is the last machine, no, it's not the last, it's the second to last new machine we need. This is called a chemical oxidizer. In this we need sulfur. Now Jeeves, in his inventory, has also got me a stack of sulfur. Thank you very much, sir. I'll put the sulfur in there. What the sulfur's going to do is get oxidized into what? Into, come on, sulfur dioxide. Sulfur and oxygen. I'm surprised I don't need an oxygen feed. But yeah, chemical oxidizer turns the sulfur into sulfur dioxide. The sulfur dioxide and the oxygen become sulfur trioxide. The sulfur trioxide comes into a second chemical infuser. So the sulfur trioxide and the second chemical infuser using this tube here, and then we need our final new machine. This is a rotary condensator. What this does is, this has got quite a few recipes, you can do quite a few things with it. Basically what this is doing is turning, we've got the, you can have a toggle it both ways. What we're doing is we're inputting water from another created tank into the liquid side, and we are exporting water vapor. So basically we're making liquid into gases. This works both ways. If you want to store a massive amount of sulfuric acid or chlorine or whatever, you can use these rotary condensators. So I could have a little chlorine plant like this guy here with one of them rotary condensators here, turning this gas into liquid hydrogen chloride for storage, which I can then store in a tank of any kind, and then we'd have to convert it back to use. But it would give you, if you're using extra cells, for example, AE, you could have cells full of hydrogen chloride as backup, so you've got a reserve. But you would have to convert it into liquid and convert it back before you can use it. But that can be done, just so you know. But what is this doing? This is putting water vapor into here. So with sulfur trioxide and water vapor, our output is sulfuric acid, and sulfuric acid is what we need for this. So as you can see now, we're going through that. Again, this is pretty slow. It's going through that, it's producing the gaseous material, it's putting that into there. Each time it gets enough, it's processing the ore, and as you can see, the iron slurry is going into there, which becomes clean iron slurry, which is getting made into our iron crystals, which is not ejecting out of there. Eject on, and it should be. So there's a little flaw in the system. This is, I don't have this set up. I'm using Steve's Factory Manager for this in my survival world, but I thought that would export out of there, but it doesn't seem to want to. But never mind. I'll just have to manually do that, but you get the gist. Then they come across there, and as we've seen and I demonstrated before, that will become our ingot. So there you go. This line starting here to the end is your 5 times processing, and to feed that you of course need a salination plant for this section with the bran. One more thing, the sulfur, you can mine sulfur from the ground, of course, as sulfur ore. A couple of things you want to be doing with this sulfur ore. Let me get a bit of sulfur. We use the metallurgy stuff. I'm playing this in Resonant Rise, by the way, just in case you was wondering. I will put that in the video description. Sulfur ore in an enrichment chamber. One ore will get you 12 sulfur. You're going to want to be saving your sulfur ore and putting it through an enrichment chamber, because you're going to need as much sulfur as you can get. That's one way of getting sulfur. Another way is our chemical injection chamber here with the hydrogen chloride getting pumped in. If we get gunpowder, we can put gunpowder into there, and that will turn into sulfur dust. which does the same thing, or dictionary. It's all the same stuff. So you can get sulfur from gunpowder. So if, for example, if you was running out of sulfur and you had a creeper mob farm, for example, you could use that to get your sulfur by having a separate little setup to do that. So there we go. That pretty much is Mechanism 5 times processing covered. Any questions, please ask in the comments. I will try to. Well, I'll try to answer to the best of my knowledge. I hope this was informative. Let me know if I've got anything wrong. I think I've got a pretty good grasp on this. I think so. I think I've got it all right. But let me know if I've got anything catastrophically wrong, so I can let other people know. And thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye. Say bye, Jeeves. Beep boop.